Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, the Seven Deadly Sins anime, I just don't even know what to say about it. Like, wow, how much of a massive fall from grace are we seeing here, folks, with the latest season of the Seven Deadly Sins, in particular the latest episode, episode 12, Wrath of the Gods, I want to say is the name of this season, but essentially this is season 3, or technically if you want to add in that OVA thing as season 2, even though it was only 4 episodes, and it wasn't an OVA, I think it was just a short, season 4, whatever you want to call it, but the latest one, Wrath of the Gods, what they've done to the Seven Deadly Sins is appalling. This is one of the worst looking fights, one of the most, hands down most disappointing fight of the entirety of 2019 for anime battles, especially one as highly anticipated. Like, what have they done? The Seven Deadly Sins is ruined. Wow, let's talk about it.
No matter how you move, get it done. No matter how you move, get it done.
So that's right, people, the Seven Deadly Sins, it's been back for already roughly 12 weeks with the latest season, Wrath of the Gods, and the anime has taken some changes. For starters, I want to say up until this point, up until the last season, the Revival of the Commandments, the studio that was handling the Seven Deadly Sins was A1 Pictures, the same studio that does Sword Art Online. They did Magi, very, very big studio. You could argue, yeah, they have their blunders, but for the most part, even with the last season, as bad as some people would argue the fights got, or the animation of the fights got, they handled it pretty okay. The first season was hands down amazing. It looked gorgeous. I love the first season of the Seven Deadly Sins. As it progressed, though, I've noticed that this series has taken a fall. And then with the latest season, wow, what the hell have they done? Because this anime actually was transferred from A1 Pictures to now the studio handling it is Studio Dean. And Studio Dean does not have a good rap at all, let alone to be able to handle action series. One of the most disappointing anime that people would argue is done by Studio Dean, or not one of the most, but it's a very disappointing adaptation of the Fate Stay Night original anime by Studio Dean, not the one, don't be confused with the one that was done later on, Unlimited Blade Works and Fate Zero by Ufotable. Totally different studio, totally different thing. But Studio Dean has already had a bad track record of how to create anime, let alone doing action stuff. So it was already like a turbulent thing, like, whoa, where are we going with this? Studio Dean picking it up. And I'm imagining the reason why A1 Pictures handed it over. Probably they've had their hands full with the Sword Art Online anime, because they've been, what, it's like 50 episodes now or something, or they going into the second half of it. And, you know, they've been doing a lot of stuff. So that's probably why they handed off the Seven Deadly Sins. And honestly, they sent the Seven Deadly Sins anime to its grave with handing it over to Dean. Like, this is like, yo, Black Clover fans, we be complaining about the art and animation in some episodes and be like, gosh darn it, what the hell have they done? And then incoming the Seven Deadly Sins Wrath of the Gods with the latest fight with Meliodas versus Escanor. What the hell are they thinking? Like, the character designs look horrid, and it's not in between shots. Like, this episode, the fight in particular is so badly animated, it is up there with Dragon Ball Super episode 5. And y'all remember very, very vividly Dragon Ball Super episode 5, how horrible the Goku versus Beerus fight looked. It was like stick figures at some given point. It was terrible. And the Seven Deadly Sins is like trying to compete with that of how bad it can get, because this fight looked atrocious. And it's sad because I want to say one of the last, definitely the last fight that I reviewed from the manga of the Seven Deadly Sins was Escanor, the Sin of Pride, you know, the Praise the Sun amazingness versus Meliodas, when Meliodas started reverting into his evil ways, or the way he used to be, due to, you know, the big major death that happened and all that stuff. So this is one of the last things that I animated, and I even got a comment recently of somebody saying, hey, you thought this was gonna look amazing in the anime, right? Because it just looks so appalling. I mean, the art is disgusting. They're just like barely just panning over the screen. They're clearly way in over their heads with the Seven Deadly Sins. Studio Dean has no idea what they're doing, because like even the other parts of the episode, not just this fight in particular, other parts of the episode just looks like still frames moving. It looks like Toei Animation when they're trying not to catch up to the manga, that they just go slow and move things in a very, very minuscule way, and it just looks horrible. I don't know what they've done, but unless they pick things up, it seems as though the Seven Deadly Sins, the anime is it's bad. It's bad. And I don't know if Studio Dean can get some more talented workers in there or something, but they desperately need to do something, because the fandom right now has been in an outrage, and rightfully so. There's no defense for why this fight looks that bad, especially considering the fact that the Seven Deadly Sins is a seasonal anime. It's not like you got, 365 days a year that they're working on this. It's supposed to be, every once a year? Once a year you get Seven Deadly Sins, and this is what you give us, Studio Dean? Like, Studio Dean, I wish we could start a GoFundMe for a pair of glasses for every single person in Studio Dean that okayed that fight. Like, y'all actually said, yeah, it's good to go. Like, what? Meliodas looked horrible. Like, there's a couple, I'll give it to this credit, there's a couple of key animation scenes, in particular, like when the fight is just about to begin, where Meliodas looks okay, he looks alright. It's like, okay, they did a good job with just the actual drawing, and then when things go into motion, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. There's even parts where half of Escanor's body wasn't even finished being drawn. Like, what the hell were y'all thinking? Like, oh man, yo, this is worse than that your pain is greater than mine scene in the Pain versus Naruto fight with Studio Pierrot. In fact, Studio Pierrot has had a rep of being like arguably the worst of one of the worst studios, especially if your manga gets an adaptation by them. You can consider it toast and everything. No, Studio Pierrot is looking pretty good right now. I would have preferred Studio Pierrot to get the Seven Deadly Sins over Studio Dean. I'm still trying to scratch my brain and understand how did Studio Dean have this land in their lap, and then of course how much they butchered it, but like, why Studio Dean? They don't have no track record of being able to do shonen anime. They're just bad, okay? They're just bad. They don't have the talent or the amount of staff or whatever it is, the budget, whatever you want to call it, to get in the high quality art and artists and animators, because it's just like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, I'll have it on the screen. You'll see a couple of different shots, maybe a couple of clips of them moving around so you can see what I'm talking about. But this is like, fan animation looks better than this, okay? I've seen fan animation that looks 10 times better than this shit that they gave us, and this is unacceptable, because Seven Deadly Sins is not like we get a new episode every single week or, anything like that. Again, this is seasonal. So with that being said, you gotta think, well, damn, what's gonna happen with the Seven Deadly Sins? It's probably, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the manga, from my understanding, is still going, which I thought it was gonna end a long time ago, but that's a whole other issue there. I could see this being the last season of the Seven Deadly Sins. One major reason, of course, is word of mouth. People are dogging the living crap out of this. Now, maybe as it goes on, they can improve. They could be like, okay, no, we can't do this. This is unacceptable. The fandom is hating it, and make some of the future fights look better. But as it stands right now, especially that's like mid-season wrap-up, I want to say, like, 12 episode mark where the openings and endings is going to change and everything, because I think this is going to go for 24. Don't quote me. That's horrible. This is just horrible. I'm in awe. Ever since I saw it, I want to say it came out Christmas Day, this episode with Meliodas versus Escanor, and it's like, yo, people have been waiting for years. I've been waiting for years. I mean, I haven't been faithfully following the anime. I check in here and there. I like to see a couple of good fights, because I've been off the Seven Deadly Sins for a while now. And then with the manga, again, a whole other story, but just to throw that in there, why I haven't been talking about the manga, because every time I say, hey, what do you guys think about the Seven Deadly Sins manga, I get so many people replying, it has went to shit, don't even bother with it anymore, it's worse than Fairy Tail. And I'd be like, damn, is that true? And don't get me wrong, I'll check for myself at some given point, but when the anime can't even do what I needed to do to get me reinvested, to be like, you know what, I remember how much I love the Seven Deadly Sins. The anime has really got me like, I need to go read the manga again. And when the anime ain't doing that, it means that probably the Seven Deadly Sins is not in the best place in any form or fashion, whether it be the anime or the manga. I know I heard something crazy with the manga. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but even that isn't enough, especially when I'm seeing the anime that is like, usually when I read the manga, for me, not everybody's the same, but for me, when I read the manga, I always get excited like, ooh, when this gets animated, this is going to look cool. Hell no! Don't animate this no more. Studio Dean, transfer the staff out or something. Just do something, because this is like, you compare season 1 of the Seven Deadly Sins and how immaculate and gorgeous it looked with A1 Pictures to this, and it's like, what the fuck are we doing here? This is disgusting. This is disturbingly bad, and I can't get over what they've done to the Seven Deadly Sins. I'm curious what you guys think about this, though. How do you feel about what's been going on with Seven Deadly Sins anime lately? The atrocious art and animation. There's no defending this fight. There's no defending Meliodas versus Escanor. And again, people will argue that, like, oh, season 2, the revival of the commandments, the last one that ended, it was disappointing with certain areas. Ain't nothing A1 Pictures could have done that can be as bad as this, especially that this was so highly anticipated. You ain't gonna tell me that. You're not gonna tell me that. Studio Dean, I'm disgusted. Hey, overall thoughts and expectations. Should I check out the Seven Deadly Sins manga for manga readers? Should I even if you tell me to check out the anime after this point, I probably won't. I'm just being honest with you. Like, maybe to see if they've improved, I might check it out here or there. But as it stands right now, wow, what happened to my 7 Deadly Sins, man? So much potential, so much promise, but between Netflix getting the license for it and ruining the popularity that it and the potential that it could have had in the West, then A1 Pictures handing it off to Studio Dean, 7 Deadly Sins, I hate to say it, but shit is really dire right now. That's all I have for this one though. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, hit that bell to get all notifications. And if you want to follow any of my other social media, links of course are in the description below. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, boy. Have an awesome day. Peace in.
Enjoy the next ride, but I was the best ride. But I hope